Hi there. Welcome to Solutio. I'm Colin Davis, and this is the Tuesday, April 7th broadcast. And the websites are shadowtechalchemy.com, solutiopodcast.com, melissamarimovie.com, melissamarimusic.com, and you can find me on Facebook as Colin E. Davis. So here we are once again. And hello to everybody who's in the chat. And we will definitely be talking to folks tonight. And if anybody wants to call in, they can. And otherwise, we'll just be talking to you through the chat. That usually works out pretty well. And so now today, if you've looked at the topic, it's kind of the same kind of, I've been talking about this new alchemical way or new ethic, a way of living, way of being. It's a psycho-spiritual way of being, a highly self-responsible psycho-spiritual way of being. And I talk about that all the time. And Melissa and I talked about all that all the time. So what we have here in Solutio or in Shadow Tech Alchemy is we have the inner work itself. We have the shadow work itself. And that's, a great deal of what I talk about, the books that I've put out and all of that is about doing shadow work and how to understand the shadow, how to see the as above, so below relationship between what's going on in the psyche and what's going on in the civilization, and using that as a map to understand the dark side of human consciousness. So that's a big part of this. And a lot of this is just about very practical work and emotional processing and other forms of shadow work, working with your complexes, your pain body, all that kind of stuff. So that's what it's generally all about. But then there's the relational side, and then there's the body side, and then there's the ethics side, and how you plug into society and the lifestyle and all of that. So the way I've been framing this lately, ever since for the last couple of years, I've really cracked the code on how to see all of this shadow work and alchemy. Individuation is what Jung called it, the process of becoming whole. I'm seeing it through Ken Wilber's 4 quadrants lens. And it's so beautiful, it's so elegant. And it does take a little while for it to click because it's a holistic, it's so simple. Once you get it, you're like, oh, okay, how could I not see it? It's like one of those 3D, paintings. I don't remember when those things came out in the 80s or something, and you look at them and it looks like one thing, but then suddenly your vision clicks and then you can see the painting behind the painting. And that's kind of how it is with the 4 quadrants. And I've shared with you guys on past live streams. You can go in there and find all kinds, just put in 4 quadrants into search or whatever, and it'll show you all the talks we've done. I'm going to continue to do that. And I'll keep doing it today. I'll do it. And so I'm working on a document, and I don't know if it's going to become a full-fledged book or just like a little ebook, or is it going to be a few different articles. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be. But it is the 4 quadrant. It is the shadow in 4 quadrants and shadow work in 4 quadrants in a way that's deeper and more descriptive than anything that I've done before. And so that is something that we're going to go into today. But I'll just go back to it just really quickly, and then we're going to break into this ethics. We're going to talk about the new ethic. And so in the 4 quadrant model, the upper left-hand quadrant, the I quadrant, is where you deal with all of your psychological states, all of your moods, all of your shadow stuff as you know it within yourself, your rage, all of your grief, your guilt, all your inner child parts, and you're doing parts work in there, and you're purging and bringing up all this stuff and all the shadow work and all the ways in which you do shadow work. The actual experience of that is in the upper left-hand quadrant. And then the lower left-hand quadrant is where those experiences, those inner experiences of mind, of psyche, and emotions and all that are shared with other people. It's the collective side of the inner state. And so the way we do that is through relational fields. We share attitudes, we share emotions with other people. We relate, we empathize. Through empathy, we share relational fields with other people. And so the shadow work then extends into your relationships. And it starts with your intimate relationship, and then it goes beyond that into family, friends, and whoever else will do it with you. But then it goes into the culture. It as you write about it, as you talk about it, as you share what you're doing with other people, and you make art out of it, you put it out into the world through content, through media, through information, through culture. Then you can share this material with other people, and it can spread out, and then it's the whole interplay between it's culture is how we take. Culture can be seen from the internal side or from the external side. And all these quadrants can be, but culture can be seen internally as shared attitudes, shared feelings, shared values, shared relational patterns that are shared amongst people in their relationships in their family and all across the whole society. Shared attitudes. You go to China and you compare that with America, for example. If you get to know how they operate over there, you realize that everything about the way their internal state is operating is a little bit different from the way our internal state is operating, and the way their relationships are structured, and the way their communication, and what kinds of feelings are acceptable to share and which ones are not acceptable, and all that stuff. So that's the internal side of culture. And then the external side of culture is literal information. It's philosophy, it's law, it's actual physical art, and it's everything about your education and everything that you actually. It's the informational side of the psyche. It's how the psyche becomes turned into information and then shared amongst ourselves. So when you go into a library, you go into a bookstore, you go into an art gallery, you go into a university, what you're getting access to is culture. Turn on the TV, it's culture. And so it's the informational side. So when we take the shadow and we put it into the lower left-hand quadrant of culture, right, then we're studying the shadow in the culture. That's one thing we're doing. We're studying the shadow in the culture. We're learning about it. It's called being red-pilled. So we're studying the shadow in the culture. We're becoming aware of it, right? And we're going through that whole process of dealing with what we're finding, and how do we integrate this, and what is this, and how does this change my worldview? And so there's the shadow of the culture, and then you can chunk it on down into your relationships, and how does the shadow work in my relationships? And so that's the whole kind of, I've just kind of riffed on it a little bit there. You can fill it out even more, but that's the lower left-hand quadrant. That's the culture quadrant. The we quadrant. You got the I and the we. And then you have the it quadrant, the upper right-hand quadrant, and that's the actual body itself. Your body is an it. And the other thing that's in the upper right-hand quadrant is your actual traceable behavior that you can actually study. Like, he wakes up at 8 o'clock in the morning, he gets ready, he brushes his teeth, He goes to work, he goes to lunch over here, this is what he's eating, blah, blah, blah. And your actual kind of what you can study about people's behavior, behavioralism is in the upper right-hand quadrant. And that can kind of get a little confusing because it's not strictly the body, it's body and behavior over there in that quadrant. But in that quadrant, the shadow is how the body manifests disease, how the body manifests symptoms and syndromes and neurotic behavior and anxiety and all of the psychosomatic, side of what's in the psyche, the shadow in the psyche. And so dealing in that quadrant, you're talking about nutrition and health and yoga and meditation and all that kind of stuff. And you're talking about exercise, and you're talking also about awareness of your behavior and changing your behavioral patterns and making sure you have ritual in your life and all of these kinds of things. That's the upper right-hand quadrant, excuse me. And then the lower right-hand quadrant is how you actually plug into society, where you're working, what are you driving? Are you riding a bicycle? Are you, how do you structure your life, and how do you plug into the greater society and actually physically get involved in collective institutions? And so that's where you're bringing awareness to your job, to the banks that you're banking with, to where you're shopping, to your environmental footprint, and how you're living physically, and how you're supporting or hopefully advancing the actual structure of civilization. So when you use this 4 quadrant, you heard me go through it all right there. And so that's very holistic. That's the definition of holistic. Everything in human capacity is included there. And so when you take that as your model and you say, my ethic, I'm going to go into the ethics now. When you go into that model and you say, my ethic is to individuate and to become shadow aware and to become shadow responsible and totally transparent, because that's what part of individuation is all about. That's sort of like the prerequisite to individuate, to work out your stuff, to evolve yourself from the inside out. In the Jungian sense, working with the shadow is the first floor of that. So, or the basement, But then with the 4 quadrant model, we can extend it out all over the place. So Erich Neumann, I'm going to bring this book back up again. I'm going to bring this book back up again. I just have to respond here, because we're going to be talking about Lauren's situation in a little while. So back to this. I really want you guys to get this book. And I know it's difficult. Look, it's small though. It's small. And it's, you know what I'm going to do with it? I'm going to take this book. And I'm going to put this into an AI program like Claude. And I'm going to get Claude to translate it into the common parlance of today, the common language, English language of today. And because this is written in 1949 or earlier, and really originally written in German, and uses a lot of psychological science language, and then translated by somebody into English, and their intention was to be very accurate with the translation. But that doesn't make it easy. That's not about ease of comprehension. So it's a very difficult read. And you have to have some background in Jungian psychology to understand it. But it's just huge. It's just massive. It's so massive. So massive. And it's so, I just can't believe I found this. I can't believe this was out there and nobody was talking about it. The Jungians weren't talking about it. It's like you go look on this, or look for people talking around this book, about this book. I found one guy had done a write-up on it or something, and there was a Jungian channel that had talked about it. It was like an interview. It's some guys in a loud restaurant talking about it. I was like, it's not a good way to present this. But so Melissa and I, we were doing the work and we were studying Jung and all that and everything that was related to that. And then we were on our own figuring out, hey, wait a minute. This isn't just about you doing this by yourself or with your therapist. First we got, this is about you doing it with your partner. Having an alchemical partner, having your intimate relationship be alchemical. We realized that's where it's at. Because that's where, you have a 24/7 lab partner. And then that's where you're going to get into conflict and stuff. And the kind of conflict you're going to get into with that person is going to be, rooted all the way down into your parental complexes. Because your relationships are based on your parental complexes. And so this is some of the best stuff to pull up and to work with. So the alchemical relationship is the ultimate. I can't say that it's better than doing alchemy, doing shadow work, doing individuation on your own, because they both have their time and place. But it's the other component. You got the individual and you have the relationship. And so we figured out that this is the ultimate. This is amazing. This is where it's at. We figured that out. But then we figured out, oh, wait a minute. There needs to be more of this. There needs to be a movement of people doing this. There needs to be a movement of this. And so we were both influenced by the human potential movement. There is an amazing, put it on to YouTube, especially now, anybody that's watching this in 2026. It's the program is called New Thinking Aloud. That's Jeffrey Mishlov's channel, and everybody should subscribe to that. Jeffrey Mishlove is an icon of psychospirituality, of a journalist of the human potential movement, and an interviewer who's had a TV or internet program for decades, and based out of California, and he's had all the badasses of consciousness and parapsychology. He's the only guy that has a PhD in parapsychology, from what I understand. And so you got to subscribe to Jeffrey. So there's a new video. It's a reboot, he calls it. It was something he did several years ago with a British author. I can't remember his name. And that guy was writing about the human potential movement of the 1960s and 70s and its roots, and who were the icons of that movement, and where, what is the whole history and background and the whole ecosystem of the human potential movement. And so I'm going to have to get one of those books from that guy, because I feel like Melissa and I are in that. What we're doing is in that. Now, some people would say, well, you guys are Jungians, and the Jungians were kind of on a sidetrack. The human potential movement people were influenced by Jung, but they weren't strictly Jungians. Well, we're not strictly Jungians. I'm not strictly a Jungian, and we're holistic. It's like the integral theory. I'm popping that right on top of things, and all kinds of things, and use IFS, and all kinds of other practices that are not in Jung. I'd say most of the actual practices that we do are not in Jung. This is 21st century alchemy, we called it. But the Jungian way, the Jungian view or mindset, and just the whole alchemical way of seeing and doing things is where we're coming from, for sure. So it's like it's rooted in Jung. It's like that's kind of like the roots of it, but then it branches out from there. But so we recognized that what we were kind of pointing at here was related to we were like, where's the human potential movement now, and where do we fit into this? And can we give talks on what we're doing without scaring people? We figured out early on that what we were doing scared people. And it was just like then the whole human potential movement kind of crashed. And we were like, okay, well, where's it going to come from next? And is it going to embrace the shadow? And this is 10, 12, 13 years ago that we're thinking these things. But Melissa was always both of us were always very, we had kind of a social activism side to ourselves. And so we were like, looking to go in that direction. And then in 2017, I wrote something called, it's right now, it's called, it's in my last book, Transforming Darkness. It's called the Psychosocial Manifesto of Ethics. It's my personal manifesto of ethics. These are my ethics. These are my actual moral, ethical guidelines, boundaries. It's an alchemical manifesto of ethics. And there's, I don't know how many points on there. There's like 15 different bullet points, maybe 20, of kind of like give you the boundaries of my ethics. And it's alchemical in its second tier, I would say, in terms of integral theory. And I just put that down. I just said, what are my ethics? It was at one point I was just trying to figure it out. I'm like, what do I really believe? What do I believe in? What are my beliefs? How do I think people should live, and what's right and what's wrong, and how, as groups, as collectives, should we behave towards each other and towards others? What are my ethics? That's what ethics is. And so I just sat down, and in about probably an hour or two, I just chunked that thing out, and then I put it on Facebook. And it had some weird title at first. It was like a progressive libertarian, I don't know where we had this term progressive libertarian we were using for a minute. It was like this in the early stages of the work. And so, but I've renamed it since then. But so I put that thing out there. So that is like where I really was like, okay, now I see the ethical side. And what I was kind of looking to resonate with on the ethics, I was this is really the domain, the morality, ethics is the domain of the church and politics, and philosophers and people who are individuating and doing psychological or psychospiritual work. That's not really the domain of ethics. That's the domain of your personal practice of what you're doing individually. But so it kind of just sat there, and we had our beliefs and all of that, but it didn't really find any outlet. And I put my manifesto out there, and some people on Facebook clicked like or whatever, but it didn't, didn't really take off or anything. Even though I look back to it today, I reprinted it in 2024, and I think I pulled one of the bullet points out. But other than that, it is verbatim the exact same thing. And so then, in about a year ago, I found that book, the one I was just showing you, Depth Psychology and a New Ethic by Erich Neumann. And so Neumann is a very, very high-level academic Jungian, badass. he's the author of The Origin and History of Human Consciousness, just some giant, badass tome. And so he wrote this book in 1949, and he said, we've just got through World War II, and it was a collective hysteria, and we just murdered millions of people, and this is all our shadow. This is shadow projection in mass. And he said, we Jungians, I'm paraphrasing, he said, we Jungians basically understand it. But we now need to use this understanding. We need to consciously individuate as people and then teach it to other people. And we need to balance ourselves as our ethical duty. So what I did, I've been talking about this for a while, but what I'm saying here is that if you want to understand what I'm suggesting here, because what I'm creating here, what Solutio is, and what I'm like slowly creating here through just talking it out and working it out and running it by you guys, I'm taking everything that Melissa and I developed ever since 2013, all the shadow work and all that kind of stuff, and then I'm mixing it with ethics. I'm using the 4-quadrant system to bridge it out to mind, body, culture, society, and I'm building this system, this way, capital W way, and it's the way I live, and then I'm sharing it with other people and inviting you to use it in any way you want to. And so it's a work in progress, but it is very satisfying to have found this book, to have found this work by Neumann, and to realize that someone, in fact, a very high-level Jungian, and the foreword is written by Carl Jung himself, saying, "Yeah, I agree with this. This is what we need to do." And to have that, and to be able to use that as the root of the ethical side of this system, of this platform that I'm developing, that is just tremendous. To have that, how amazing is that? It's like it's like an archaeological find. That was just this buried archaeological find, and you pull it out, and it's just like absolutely perfect. It's like written for today. And so I've got that book all marked up and everything. And like I said, I'm going to work on a translation of that book. I'm going to use an AI program and translate that into more readable language and put that out there for people. But what I'm going to do right now is I knew I was going to be talking about that book and about this, and then we're going to kind of go into some more 4-quadrant stuff in a little bit. And then we're going to talk about the situation of what Lauren's working on in her life. But so there is in this book, I went and kind of like summarized one of the core understandings of this book, and I'm going to read to you my summary. This is not Neumann's words. This is my words. I just kind of typed this out. I just kind of went over the notes that I had kept in there and looked at some passages to remind myself of what's in there, and then I said, oh yeah, okay. And I wrote this little summary down so I can read this to you and explain it to you and what he's saying. There's the old ethic, which is basically the Christian, the Judeo-Christian or Christian ethic. And then there's the new ethic, the alchemical ethic, the individuation ethic, the ethic of shadow awareness and shadow work. And the old ethic is an ethic of repression. You repress everything that doesn't fit into your persona, so you look real nice and clean to everybody. And you have laws that are all based on virtue and goodness and justice and all of that. But then what do you do with your beast? What do you do with your psychopath? What do you do with your victim? What do you do with your orphan? What do you do with those parts of you? Well, they get shoved into the shadow. And then they find their way out one way or another. We project them onto other people, or they just leak out in all kinds of shadowy behavior that we have to hide from and cover up. And so we have this dualistic mindset where these things are good and these things are bad, but they're all human. And so we split ourselves. We become one-sided, as Jung called it. And so we're all, our ego consciousness is focused on the good and the light and everything and what we should be, but that's not all of us. So we're divided by nature. And the psyche, and it's natural that the ego itself is a dividing line. There's an ego membrane, a dissociative boundary that divides the ego complex consciousness from the rest of the psyche unconsciousness. And so that is a built-in feature, and you could even find it in the brain and stuff, the prefrontal cortex kind of being its own discrete system and all of that. So it's naturally built into us, but it comes with it makes it so that we can do the things that we can do. We're not animals. We have this separate system, this system of light and consciousness and culture and order. And we have this nice island of order sitting upon this sea of unconsciousness. And so it gives us advantages. We can build a society on that island. But then down below, there's all the sharks and all the squids and all that. And the storms that come through and all of that. So it doesn't really completely protect us, and then we hide from it, and then it comes back and destroys us periodically, like it's what's happening right now in society. So the better thing to do is to form a relationship with it and constantly be relating to the shadow and pulling it up and going, oh, okay, that's part of me, let me integrate that. Okay, that's part of me to the best of my ability, integrate that. And we haven't really solved this human problem yet, but we need to be on that path to doing that. It's like, the idea of progress, scientific progress. When people admitted we can't do, and whenever people were really getting into this, the Enlightenment, they admitted, we can't do everything. We're not there yet. Can't do everything. We don't know everything, but that's our project. We're going to try to be able to know as much as we can know, understand as much as we can understand, build technology and increase the standard of living and all this. It's all about progress. We recognized that we can progress and that we should progress. But we did that externally. That was all about external progress. And with this ethic, with this new ethic, with this alchemical ethic, it's about internal progress. And so we haven't started yet, really. I mean, we go to the East, and there's always an esoteric tradition somewhere that has been working on that. And you can go to the East, and you can go to the yogic, systems and Taoism and Buddhism and Tantra and all that stuff, and you can find, or shamanism and indigenous cultures, you can find traditions that are all about inner progress, inner healing, inner development, inner maturation. So it's around, but it's not the mainstream, and there's not really ever really a big movement towards it. So Neumann was saying, well, if we don't get a movement towards this, we're going to blow ourselves up. We've got to go in this direction. So now let me read you this paraphrased description of kind of his main idea of the old ethic versus the new ethic. Actually, let me pull it up on the bigger screen so that I can see this more easily. Here we go. The old ethic versus the new ethic. The old ethic is a dualistic split between ego and shadow, light and dark, good and evil. We establish the social ethics of what is good and what is just, while we shove down all of our primal and animalistic drives, which are contrary to that ethic. Then we have to project our shadow drives onto others and go to war with them. This is the old ethic. It requires a continual state of repression and projection so that the conscious ego can never be confronted with the darkness of the individual or of one's own tribe. The new ethic is one of individuation as an ethical mandate, which includes the confrontation with the personal and collective shadow. In the new ethic, we recognize our base nature and we come into living relationship with it. The victim, the orphan, the rapist, the psychopath are seen to be collective manifestations of aspects that we all carry. The new ethic requires the alchemical processing of one's own darkness as a personal and collective remedy. We integrate the shadow in our personal laboratories of psyche, body, and relationship on behalf of ourselves and all of humanity. The new ethic is one of wholeness rather than bipolar splitting. The new ethic is one where the enthroned ego is brought down to earth, not by the guilt of original sin that is ingrained in us by society, but by the humility that comes from personal inner work and confrontation with one's own shadow, which contains our primal drives, weaknesses, and vulnerabilities. The product of conscious relationship with the shadow brings the human being into balance. The new ethic doesn't require nearly as much repression, projection, and displacement of the shadow. When these mechanisms come into play, the alchemically conscious ego gets to work on integrating them. The greater society takes into account our plight and assists us with not only the empathy, but with encouragement and mentoring. The world of dark versus light and good versus evil is dissolved and replaced with an understanding of wholeness, which includes our lower nature. At the same time, because within the shadow is also incredible gold that was once hidden away or projected out as idealization upon willing narcissists, we balance our dark shadow awareness with integration of our golden shadow, which contains our highest gifts and beneficent nature. So there you go. So that is that's my description of Neumann's idea of the old ethic versus the new ethic, and I think that's probably pretty accurate to what he was saying in there. And so that's what this is about. Now, you cannot prescribe an ethic, a way of living, a way of relating to other people that you're not doing yourself, you're not living yourself. So I was watching this program, this podcast where they were talking about the business of religion and how fake the business side of the mega churches and all this kind of stuff is. So a lot and nonprofits and how they've become so corrupt. And so, you know, the real stuff, the real deal has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with business. And that's where the spiritual ethic that comes out of some, the beginnings of some tradition, that the actual original intent is what you want to go with. And as it gets, more and more secularized, then it loses its foundations, and then it just becomes corrupt, and it becomes a mechanism for people to displace their own shadow, to project, to displace, to live out their shadow material. And so, what we're talking about here, this has to be, you have to live this. You have to live this. And anything that you try to create right now that is not in this age of revealing, you could call it, Michael Tsarian once called it, this Plutonian age of revealing, anything that you create right now that is not super clean, super ethical, is just going to blow up. There's no use trying to make something that's not super clean. At least, well, I guess there's still room for that. I guess there's still people who are very shadowy people that can, but it won't last. I have no interest in that whatsoever. So integrity is my, is what I'm on. It's all about integrity. Transparency, integrity, walking the walk. That's what it's all about. It has to be that. It has to be that. Otherwise, not going to go anywhere. Can't mean anything. Can't do anything for yourself. Can't do anything for others. So that's what this is. And so now I was going to say something else. I was going to go somewhere with that. I just kind of lost it. But let us now, hi to Marty and everybody in the chat. I'll take a look at your comments in a little while. So let's see what time it is now. Yeah, in a little while, maybe 20, 30 minutes. I don't know how long it'll take me to kind of get through this, but I just keep pushing this on you guys. I just keep pushing the integral 4 quadrants on you guys. Go online and put in integral 4 quadrants, and look at the I, we, it, its. Look, first person, second person, third person, plural. Just look at that. Talk to ChatGPT or whatever AI program, or put it in a video in YouTube, and just figure out what the 4 quadrants is. And you can put anything into the 4 quadrants, and it will give you a holistic viewpoint of that subject. So for me, it's individuation and the shadow. So that's what I'm putting into the 4 quadrants. And so I just wanted to kind of go over again, just to keep kind of hammering this in there. Like, do I have a picture? Let me see here. I got all kinds of pictures on here. This was one version of it that I put up for that was very artistic. And I got the shadow side, and I have the individuation side, the light side on the right. Oh, we could use that. Do I have anything else here? Let me see if there's any other images. Let's see what else we got here. Let me pull out. So let's find something to look at here. No. Yeah, Solutio size, slide 1. Okay, we're going to use that other one. I'm just going to put that up on the eight quadrants I was calling it. So, upper left-hand quadrant, mind. See, it says mind. That's the I quadrant. And so on the shadow side, that's the shadow of the psyche. That's the Jungian shadow. And on the light side, on the right side, that's what you're doing with it. That's your shadow work. That's your spiritual alchemy. That's your individuation. On the lower left-hand quadrant, that's your culture quadrant. See, it says culture, we. So that's your cultural evil and all the ways in which your relationships are contaminated with shadow. And then on the lower right-hand lower left-hand quadrant on the right side, you got your shadow-aware ethics, which goes all the way down into your relationships. When I was reading that Neumann thing, that's there. That's where that's at. And then you have the upper right-hand quadrant, body quadrant, as you can see on the shadow side. That's your disease and behavioral pathology. Right? That's all the ways that you're holding on all this shadow junk, and it's wrecking your body, and it's wrecking your it's riddling you with illness and psychosomatic symptoms. And so the remedy for it on the right-hand side is the healthy body and behavior, right? And all the ways in which you can engage in that practice. And then the lower right-hand quadrant on the shadow side is the I call it the matrix deep state. That's all the corruption, like we were talking about with the religions and stuff. But it's far beyond that. Obviously, we all know how corrupt the governments and the corporations and all the different complexes, which happens to be a psychological term that's very, very relevant. The military-industrial complex and the pharma complex and the, government education complex and on and on and on. Well, so what's the remedy for that on the lower right-hand quadrant? That's complete total awareness of the way that you plug into society, creating a symbiotic footprint, I was calling it there. Where are you working? What are you, how are you, what are you using, corrupt banks and stuff, and what's your commercial life like, and how are you interfacing with society, and how are you interfacing with society? Let me turn this off for a minute. How are you interfacing with society, and how is that shadowy? Are you working for some yucky, personal injury lawyer that's a scammer? Can't do that, right? Are you overcharging your clients and stuff, or or like I always use this example of the guy that was fixing the my air conditioner, the company that was fixing the air conditioner and stuff like that, and I thought I knew what the problem was, and it was a small fix. But the guy was saying, no, I don't think that's what it is. I think you have to replace the whole core. Well, how much is that going to cost? Yeah, it's a few $1,000s with the labor and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but I think it might be this. I think it's just like a weld broke right there. No, chances of that happening are very small, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, before you charge, it's a family home, before you charge my stepfather, $3,000-$4,000, whatever it is, to fix this whole thing, I really want you to test that. And he called the manager, and they were just like, I don't know if he's gonna have to go all the way back to the shop and get a test kit and all this kind of stuff. We don't think that's it. And I'm like, well, I'm just not doing it. You have to do that. Well, it turns out I was right. Turns out I was right, and that's all it was. And there was nothing. The coolant ran out, during the process, and we had to pay for the coolant, but I think they only charged us half price and stuff. And the whole thing ended up being like $800 or something instead of $3,000 or something. But they were going to default to not doing the test because it was better for them. But then that just makes the company, somebody has to manufacture another core, and it has to be shipped on ships, and the whole manufacturing process and the shipping process and everything that goes into bringing that air conditioning core into reality and putting it in, and all of the, just think about all the resources that are expended that were totally unnecessary. And this is what our economy is based on, is the movement of economic throughput that we call gross domestic product, and we use other terms and stuff, and it's just all about making more and moving things. And it's not about recycling, it's not about saving. That's a whole other way of running an economy that we need to switch into, but that doesn't benefit the parasites. So how do we interface? Are you going to run a business like that? Or are you going to be extremely honest and what that means is you're not going to be able to make as much money that way. That company can make more money if they operate the way they are operating than they can if they're really honest and careful. But they're robbing people of their pension funds, of their savings, right? Because this is the people that are owning homes and getting their, everybody's getting their ACs fixed now, their air conditioners and all that. But so and the younger people that don't have any savings, you're making them go into debt because their air conditioner's broken and it didn't need to be replaced. So how are you operating in the world? How are you operating in society, in your business, in your church, in all these ways? You have to go through all these things, and then you have to develop your lifestyle, your footprint that is in accordance with a very, very clean and honest footprint, and so that means you're not gonna have that. You're not gonna drive a Mercedes. You're gonna drive a Toyota Corolla or a Mazda or something. That's how you're going to operate, and that's fine with you when you're living under this ethic, because you don't have a materialistic mindset under this ethic. That's not interesting to you. That sounds childish and parasitic. That's not interesting. Just to have stuff, to show it off to other people, or just to have some rush that you got more stuff. That's not interesting to us. We don't operate that way. And so what we're doing here is we're living in a completely alternative way. This is like an island of highly conscious and responsible psychospiritual living and being. There are other spiritual traditions. There are other ascetic groups that are living very austere and clean, symbiotic lives around the world. There always have been. There always will be. And but we're in the West, and where is that in the West? There's not much of that in the West. There's forced austerity. There's people who are living austere lives, very low footprint lives, poor people we call them, because they would rather come up, they'd rather drive a Mercedes, but they just have so many complexes, so to speak, they can't pull it off. But if they could, they would. If they won the lottery, they would buy a Mercedes. And so, or whatever it is. And not to say that a Mercedes is really bad, actually. Mercedes are workhorse cars. They're not bad. The Germans, the Europeans are driving Mercedes Sprinter vans and stuff. They're awesome vehicles. That's a great vehicle to have. Sometimes having a Mercedes is the exact right thing to have, right? But, I'm just kind of using that as an example of how, in a lot of cases, it's gluttony and it's not necessary. But it's not always the case. It could be a very good family vehicle or business vehicle and all of that kind of stuff. But anyway, it's that kind of awareness. It's that very conscious, shadow-aware footprint. And that goes along with the shadow work. So we don't just do shadow work and, upper left-hand quadrant. We don't just do shadow work and then go spill out a bunch of junk and participate in a shadowy society in a shadowy way. No. As you clean yourself up, you clean up your whole lifestyle. Everything cleans up. So, where are we now in our broadcast? We're almost an hour in. So I was just going to real quick. So in your upper left-hand quadrant, this is where all your inner work is. This is your spiritual life. This is your experience of the transcendent. This is your individuation, as Jung called it, your shadow work, and all the things that are in shadow work. I could list a few of them here. Shadow leakage awareness, projection mapping, complex mapping and communication, active imagination, loving compassion work with parts and external shadow figures, inner child work, emotional clearing work, internal family systems work, all that kind of stuff. That's all the shadow work stuff. Golden shadow work, right? Journaling, art therapy, all forms of locating, moving, expressing, and integrating the shadow. Right, so that's in the upper left-hand quadrant. And then everything that has to do with spirituality and psychospiritual practice that's not shadowy, that's all in there too. Right? Everything that's all that. And then the lower left-hand quadrant, your relationships and culture, relational alchemy, relational complex work, belief deconstruction, write your own manifesto of ethics, big one. Red pill awareness and immunity. Big one. Upper right body work and personal behavior, ultra clean and natural diet, all types of body work and exercise, athleticism, yogic work, meditation, somatic practices of all kinds, spiritual rituals, because behaviors in this quadrant. I was talking to Lauren today about her personal altar, which she just got going. Sacred space, right? Having sacred space in your living environment or around you, your actual life practice, spiritual life practice, prayer. I say I eat basically probably 3 meals a day, more or less, and I pray, in my breakfast and my dinner. Melissa taught this to me, and it's very good, very helpful. And then your lower right-hand quadrant, we were just talking about your symbiotic and transparent business practices and commercial life, and all the other ways that you plug in with society and giving back to society and mentoring people and the way you plug into society. That's all that. So all of this goes into the way we are. This all goes into our life practice. And so, and that's puts a lot of, and you don't really, you once you kind of have the 4-quadrant map, you can just kind of like check in with it and be like, yeah, where is this that I'm considering doing or bringing into my life? Where is this in the 4 quadrants? You find it, and then you're like, okay, what's the cleanest version of this? Oh, okay, it'll be that. And it helps guide you. It helps orient you in a way that's very clean. So that's what we're talking about here. And I just figure if I'm doing this, I'm taking this super seriously. And if anybody else is attracted to this, and this is what they take seriously, and they can get on board with this, and they're looking for a group, they're looking for other people who are on this, and who had the who are working it out and being highly conscious of all this. Well, then here you're in our group, you're in our movement, and then once we can get a number of people to be really serious about it, like it was me and Melissa, and now Melissa's not with us, and I have a handful of other friends. I have a few other friends, all women right now, who are on the train with this. And especially Lauren. Lauren is really, really on it. She's super on it. She's super talented, supernaturally talented. She's like a lot of us, just wounded enough to need to work on herself, but not so wounded to where she can't. And then she's very intelligent, and she's very has very good access to her feelings. Has visual like active imagination capacities that I certainly don't have, and she has natural capacities that make her an alchemist by nature. And I think she came on the show. Was she on the show last week, or was it the week before? And I don't know if she's going to come on tonight, but she'll be coming on in the future. But I've been working with her very closely lately, and it's been amazing for both of us. And I called her before the show tonight because she had a very kind of tumultuous weekend, and I thank her and I praise her for being very transparent with her. Let me find this. With her process. She has her own, it's called Psyche's Alchemy Lab. That's what her YouTube is currently called. And she has about 6, 8, 10 different testimonials on there over the last year about her process. But now that her and I are speaking, I'm really like, helping her problem solve, and also kind of helping her catch up with the Jungian system. And that's the other thing about Lauren, is she's so into Jung and the Jungian thing. And I just feel like that is so important on this path that you kind of can't avoid that. There's other spiritual systems you can get into and stuff, but if you're on the shadow work side of things, you have to have a basis in Jung. Hi, Theo. You have to have a basis in Jung to do the alchemy. If you're a Westerner, and you, even if you're an Easterner now, but if you're a Westerner, definitely, and you're doing the shadow work, and this is your calling, and you realize you have junk to process, you have inner child work to do, you have parts work to do, you have to work with your complexes, and then you need a grounding in Jungian psychology. It's not even fully a psychology; it's a psycho-spiritual way, and so Lauren is very into that, and that's very good. I feel like she's just a natural. It's like some people sign up for martial arts or whatever. Theo's another one. I know for a fact also he's another natural. Yeah, Jungian psychology for all. Theo's another one who's a natural. And he's just a natural. Some people come into the dojo and you're like, you can just tell this person's going to earn their black belt. And those are two people right there. And there's other people on the chat too that Carlos. There's other people. I don't know Marty so well yet, and I don't know everybody in the chat and where they're at with their process yet. They haven't shared it with me yet to where I can kind of. But I imagine that probably everybody that's in this YouTube channel, probably everyone that's in here is a naturally talented at the inner work and has and can do a whole lot with themselves and then with other people if they stay the course. But anyway, I've been talking to Lauren, and so I called Lauren and I said, let's talk about what you went through this weekend. And see where are we with time. Let's talk about what and we kind of had to kind of recall, well, what happened. So basically, Lauren has had, several years ago, she had a big relationship breakup. She had a couple tumultuous relationships in a row, but especially one that was really big. And there was a lot of projection going on in the relationship. And there was a whole lot of activation of parental complexes and old junk from childhood and everything. And it was just all getting active, and it was somewhat abusive. And that whole thing blew up, and she went flying. And I've been there. I know what that's like. And so all these patterns, all these complexes got activated. And what I'm describing right now is archetypally human. So all these patterns got activated, and then she was, in the dirt. And then she had to pick herself up and figure out what was going on. And she later recognized that she was living kind of in a fantasy world, and that there was a lot of fantasy mixed in with things, and there was a lot of neediness mixed in with things, and that she said, I need to figure myself out. And this is the exact same thing that happened to me, and it's the kind of the archetypal dark night of the soul for the person who actually takes the dark night of the soul and turns into an alchemist out of it. This is what they come to. They say, wow, how did that happen to me? How did I not see the red flags? How did I not see that coming? What is it about me that made it so that I couldn't see what the destruction that I was going to come upon me? How could I have not seen that? And so then that causes you to go on an inner journey. And then that's what causes you to go into some kind of psycho-spiritual school. And so that's what she did. And then she's been kind of deconstructing things for a few years. And she was always introspective and always already, had those kind of qualities. But she really dived into this, and then I found her and I thought, wow, this woman she's really talented at this. And so we started talking, and then now it's like the whole process is speeding up. And these complexes are like they've been seen, they've been illuminated. And Lauren is very dedicated to integrating these things and to pulling up this energy and integrating it and working it through. And then what's been happening is that the more she digs into these things, these complexes start to activate, and they will turn on. And once a complex is triggered, a complex is sort of a nodal network that interfaces between the unconscious and the conscious. That's what it is. You can see it. I'm putting out a paper, or it might be included in a book, where I use different analogies to explain complexes. But a complex is like an organ of the psyche, and it's there to move energy and information from the unconscious to the conscious. And you have all kinds of different complexes that serve different purposes. And basically, they're kind of like sub-programs. And so basically, our whole state of reality, the mood we're in, and everything about our perception and how we're feeling, and our somatic state, and all of that is being run or being mediated through complexes. And so in the Jungian system, a complex has an archetypal core. Every complex is kind of there to channel some archetype, and you know how in Jungian psychology the archetypes are personified in mythology as gods and goddesses and characters of all kinds, and storylines, common storylines are these point to a pattern in the collective unconscious that Jung called us an archetype, a pattern of human being. And those complexes channel those patterns and turn them into your thoughts, your visions, your fantasies, your perceptions. They influence all of that. And they're like transformers between archetypes and the conscious ego. So those are all like sitting there like organelles in a cell, and they're doing their thing. And when you have developmental or specific trauma, or you inherit somebody else's developmental or specific trauma, then these complexes get messed up. Your complexes get messed up. They get tied together with other complexes, and the whole kind of ecosystem down there gets pathological. And then a trigger, an environmental trigger, can trigger one of these complexes, and then it will just start flooding up emotional energy, thoughts, memories, attitudes. All this will just start flooding up, and you know what it's like when you get triggered. And so a complex is activated, and it takes you over. And so as you work on yourself, this is one of the primary ways that we're doing this work. Like, we're not just sitting there in meditation waiting for something to come up. We're living our lives, and we're relating to people. And then through those situations, our complexes get triggered, and to the degree they are pathological, that becomes well known to us very quickly. And so when you're going and picking on yourself, picking down into your unconscious, and you're tracing down stuff, and you're talking to your therapist or to your friend, your alchemical partner, or whoever is there to support you, and you're picking on this stuff, and it starts activating. Right? But it's like you got a cavity or something, and the dentist is picking at it with a pick, and it's like, ouch, that hurts. But that's what we're doing. But we have to do that to figure out where the cavity's at. And so that's what she's been doing. And this last weekend, she had a one or two complexes got activated, and she got very overwhelmed with emotion, and she got this one traumatic relationship experience that she had, flooded back up. And so what she did with it is she went to the park, and she sat down, and she in the grass, I suppose, and she did some active imagination, and she's very talented with that. So she did some active imagination with that, and she imagined a situation with her last partner where she it was where she imagined it was an inner child imagination where she got her I believe she got her inner child back from her partner, and her partner got her inner child back from her. And so she was reunited with her inner child. And that actually moved a lot of energy and started to stabilize the complex. Not everybody is so good with the active imagination. I'm not as good with it. But she was able to do that, and then that solidified things. That stabilized her. And then we had a lot of communication over the weekend. And we I sent her a lot of messages, voice messages and stuff, just sort of like reminding her of things and putting things in perspective and everything. And then that helped to stabilize her. And then she went and had a big old trip. She left town and drove for hours. And like that, we called that, Melissa had a part like that too, running girl, we called her. And this running girl complex, or node, let's say, got activated, and then she went, and then when she came back from that, the whole episode was kind of over. So it was like a weekend-long episode. But we were talking about it, and we were talking about how she used to have those kinds of episodes, like we've all had, and without any help. And now she has at least one person who understands this stuff and that can shine a light on it and be and to support her while she's doing that. And we realized, like I already knew that because all the work I did with Melissa, how important that, absolutely important that is to be able to have somebody so that when you're digging in on this stuff, then you have somebody to support you. So that's I do that for whoever needs it. If you're serious and you're getting stuck, well then I'm here for you. Right? You just can get in touch with me and I'll help you through what you're going through. And so it's kind of like, I was like, this is like AA. Alcoholics Anonymous, but this is Alchemists Anonymous. That's what this is. This is Alchemists Anonymous. This is our Alchemists Anonymous meeting. And so anyway, that's what was going on. And so I have some notes on that. I kind of just told you what it is. And inner child work, active imagination, triggered family trauma, heart pain. She's really working on the heart pain. Running girl road trip. And now what she's doing a lot of is what she's calling de-armoring. Like Wilhelm Reich, body armoring and all of the ways that the body holds the anxiety and holds the repression. And it's the trauma gets locked in the body. She's really pulling that apart. And as she relaxes herself, and as she was, one of the other things we were really working on is her ego that wants to constantly think of what the next thing she's supposed to do in life is. And so she and I'm like, it's not where you are right now. You're in process. You're in process, and this is about This is about having your sacred space. This is about being calm and simple, and your life being as simple and calm and natural as possible. And all the ego stuff of what I'm supposed to do with my life and what people think about me, all that's got to kind of get relaxed. And you go into your alchemical laboratory, and then you get satisfied with the depth and the juice of that, and your spiritual practice, and you really dedicate to your spiritual practice, your ritual practices, right? And you come into that, and your breathing and your diet and your all the stuff that you're doing, whatever is in your particular toolkit, whatever you're doing, you just focus down on that, and you let the ego stuff go. And you may still have to work or do something like that, so you have to find a place to put that in there. But then other than that, and you can still have relationships, but you want those relationships to be deep if you can get those. I'm just going to read through this, and then I'm going to look and see what you guys have been saying in the chat. So she's de-armoring. She's going into old memories and using active imagination to move through those memories and to reimagine. That's what active imagination is you take an old memory or a dream, and then you continue it on with where you think it needs to go in the evolutionary, to go into evolution, to go into health, and then that activates the complexes. The complexes live out through emotional flooding. We were talking about this on the phone, how the complex is feeling toned. This is a Jungian understanding. Every complex has I didn't mention that earlier, that it has a feeling that's associated with it. So when that complex is activated, you're going to get flooded with this feeling. And then you will act out the pre-programmed behavior that's embedded in the complex, in the program. And what she learned how upset her little girl is, and how much she has suppressed or cut off that's in her unconscious. She said getting taken over by the complexes is hard. It's really hard, but and she like we said earlier, she recognized that the need for support, because if you don't have the support when these complexes, this is good stuff actually right here. If you don't have support when you're digging up the complexes, or they're being triggered and they're coming up, and you don't have the support, then what you're going to do is you're going to medicate, or you're going to cut off, you're going to repress, you're going to stop it right there and say, nope, can't handle this flood of emotion. So you need that helper. You need that alchemical partner to help you handle that while you're going through that. And then she said the pain can feel so real, and support is mandatory. Yeah. So I do like my kind of idea there that this is kind of like not alcoholics. This is we are, we're not all alcoholics. I'm not, but we're addicts to our complexes, and so we're alchemists anonymous. It's a good way to actually explain it too, because people kind of know what it is and how it's it's a real human brotherly sisterly love kind of organization and way of being with each other and helping each other. Okay, I'm going to read your comments right now. Who is what is the name of I Am Her Ambience again? I forgot who uses that handle. Hi. And Marty says, our shadow has some wonderful lessons and comfort. Does every endeavor create an economy of some sort? No, it does not need to. Let's talk about those two things in turn. In the Jungian sense, your shadow, I wouldn't say your shadow has comfort, but it has wonderful lessons, absolutely. Your shadow is very uncomfortable to work with. It's like oil and water. The ego and the shadow don't naturally mix. And so integrating the shadow is uncomfortable by definition. But there is the category of the golden shadow, and even the golden shadow is uncomfortable. The golden shadow is your highest purpose and your greatest gifts that you haven't been using or recognizing. You didn't get enough mirroring in early life. You didn't get enough praise. Not enough people noticed where your genius is. Or perhaps your genius is just too different from your family culture or from your general society. And so you don't really feel comfortable accessing it. So it's kind of back in the shadow. Well, accessing the golden shadow, your genius, your talents, your brilliance, your specialness, that's hard too. That's uncomfortable too. And there is a natural governor or protection circuit in the psyche that if you start to people do this, you start to contact your inner gold, and then people start praising you for it, and then you realize, wow, I am pretty great, aren't I? And then you become very inflated, we call it. Inflated, grandiose, narcissistic. And then you can be very, very, because you haven't done the core work, now you're flying high. Your ego's all blown up, inflated up, and you're flying high, but you don't have the practice and the experience of grounding yourself and everything and all the wisdom, internal wisdom that comes out of doing the work. And so then when you come up against opposition like you always do, and you start to get humiliated and people find your weaknesses, despite your talents, they find your weaknesses, and then they start slinging arrows on you because they're jealous, well, then you're going to have a very, very hard time, and you can crash and burn. And then you tried to touch your gold, and you flew like Icarus for a little while with it, and then you crashed and burned. You may not want to touch it again. It happens to people all the time. They may not want to go dig and get that gold again because it's too dangerous. It leads to grandiosity, and then that just causes you to crash. So there's an inner protection circuit that says don't access this gold because you might crash and burn. And so that's in there. So I don't think if facing the shadow is always uncomfortable, and you don't do it, sometimes you're in a phase like where Lauren is, where you're doing a whole bunch of it at once, and you have to do that at first. But then after that, you just kind of are taking it like little spoonfuls of yucky medicine as it comes to you in life. But so yeah, so you are. It's a preventative. You know that what you're doing is uncomfortable, but it's better than letting it pile up, right? And then does every endeavor create an economy of some sort? No, we didn't. That is a modern thing, that everything has to be commercialized. Babysitting has to be commercialized, or doing labor for a friend or family member. You do something for a family member, they'll even offer you money to do something for them. And everything has become commercialized. And so one of the things we want to do, lower right-hand quadrant in the integral system, is we want to de-commercialize our relationships, right? I could be trying to come up with some way to monetize my experience in this area. I could be trying to, charge, I do offer paid coaching, and people who can afford it should pay me if they're getting that from me. But if that's not possible, that doesn't stop me from working with anybody. I don't put money in front of this work. And then I just operate on faith that way. And then I just allow the universe, I allow God to provide for me. So it's a very spiritual way of living. Thanks, Theo. Yeah, thanks for the nice comments. Jungian Psychology for All, and oh yeah, Synchronicity 76. That's another one. I don't know their name. It would be good to know the names of you guys that use. But hi, yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here too. And Theo says it rings a bell. I don't remember what I was saying. And Theo says ocean within that can sustain or destroy you. Yeah, the unconscious, right? The ocean within that can sustain or destroy you. That's the unconscious. Psychosomatic therapy is crucial for sure. Yes, John Sarno is who I would recommend to you. The Divided Mind is the book to get. His other books are great too, but they were more focused on back pain and physical pain. If you're having physical pain, read The Mind-Body Prescription. But if you're having other psychosomatic things, gastrointestinal problems or skin problems or anything like that, The Solution, that's another person I really like because of the way they do things. The remedy is not some expensive therapy. It's just read the book and do the work. Do the psychological work. Now, he doesn't give you a prescription for how to do the psychological work, but at least he lets you know, hey, the reason why you're getting this symptom is because there's junk locked down in your psyche that you need to get access to. So at least now you've been given, the door's been opened. And you're not going to be running to the doctor, what's wrong with me? I got some rare genetic disease, and identifying with your disease and all that kind of stuff. You can get on the self-healing path with that. So yeah, John Sarno, The Divided Mind. And great work, Lauren. Yeah, absolutely. She's a badass. And you're welcome, Her Eminence. You're welcome, Her Eminence. You're very welcome. And so here we are. You guys can keep putting stuff in the chat, and we're gonna talk to you, and we're gonna keep going with that because we got another half hour to go. And I want these shows. I do these shows. It takes about an hour, no matter what time I start the show. It takes 45 minutes or something like that for people to come in here. Some people come in early, but so got to kind of stay the course so that I get a chance to talk to you all, because that's the best part of the show, is talking to you and answering your questions, or responding, let's say, to your questions, and working with your stuff and whatever you want to put in there that I can go with, so that I can help you in any way that I can. So that's the best part of this. Me talking about ethics and all my cool ideas and all that kind of stuff is, it's cool for some people who like theory and they like all that kind of stuff. That's kind of who I am, so I'm definitely going to be doing that. Let me look at my notes here. But that's not the most important thing. Is how this work translates to your personal process, and how can we use these understandings that I talk about, that I write about. How can I use these understandings to help you better understand where you are in your process, to give you a tool and say, here you go, here's a tool you can use. And you go, oh, okay, I see how to use that tool. This is all about helping you to refine your process and refine your, and to become to individuate. What else can I talk about? So, the complex. I was talking about the complex. And I just completed this article on complexes, and I will release that at some point soon. And it's like almost every day I think about another thing that I need to add into there. And maybe, feel free to put anything in the comments, you guys, but maybe I could give you some other updates. And the movie I made about Melissa, melissamarimovie.com. And that movie is, I've submitted it. There's a, if you ever, I never was into filmmaking before. This is the first film that I've ever made about Melissa and my life with her. And so I completed that film in November of last year. And then I started submitting it to film festivals. And there's a website called filmfreeway.com. And it's used by the film industry for filmmakers to submit their films to film festivals. And so I've been doing that. And it's not that expensive to submit to film festivals. You know, it's something between like $10 at the low end to probably $100 on the high end. But they're probably average like $25 to $40. And you just kind of go through this catalog of all the different film festivals that are out there, and you can search on search terms and find the ones that fit your content, and then you can submit to them, and then you wait to see if you're selected. And my film is very eclectic and esoteric, but it's also very deep and very touching, and so it's a really good film. But it's underground. You know, it's made on iPads and iPhones and stuff for the most part. But I've made it very good quality. It's very good quality, I think. But it's just it's not a pro level film, and so it goes in a certain category. And so I've been looking for those kinds of film festivals, and I did get accepted by what's called the First Hermetic Film Festival in Italy, which is all about esoterica and films about consciousness and alchemy and all that kind of stuff. There's not too many of those out there, so I'm very happy that they selected that film, and I don't know if it's going to win an award or not, but it's going to be played in the theater, and so that's great. And I've submitted to over 40 festivals, and I've got the word back that I got honorable mention on one other one, and then I've got selected on this one, but about 5 or 6 of them have already declined, and I got about maybe 30 to go that are going to either accept it or decline. And I'm hoping that I can get a couple more acceptances into that. And so I'll keep you guys posted on that. And if anybody wants to watch the film about Melissa, just send me a message and I'll send you the link, and so you can watch it privately. I can't release it until I'm done with the whole film festival circuit. Megan from Australia. Hello. Hi, Megan. Your synchronicity 76. I'm going to write that down because I think I have a note. Let me answer your question in just a second. So yeah, Megan, is synchronicity 76. That's great. I'm going to remember that. And yes, I'm glad you're here, Megan. And let's see, on holidays. Oh, you're on holidays again? So you're able to catch me. Is it morning time over there? So you're able to catch me, right? Because you're not at work right now. You're not. Megan's a teacher, and she needed to hear this stuff. Love the idea of being in Alchemists Anonymous. Yes, that's what we are. You're another alchemist. You're another one on the path. Another talented alchemist on the path. And so if anything's come up, Megan, that you wanna talk about, anything that's come up that's alchemical on the light side or the shadow side, let me know. And so anyway, okay, so what was I doing? I was kind of updating you on what's going on while I'm kind of waiting to see what you guys are saying in there. Megan, did you see? You don't have time for reading right now, but I keep pointing people to this depth psychology and a new ethic. We talked a lot about this today. and Erich Neumann, with a foreword by Carl Jung. And like I said, I'm going to take this thing. I've been looking for a bootleg version of it. I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to send it into Claude or some other AI program, and I'm going to have it translate it into more readable language, chapter by chapter. And so, and then I'm going to put that out there. And then I don't think that will be copyright infringement. And might be, but these days, that book's been around since 1949, and this needs to be done. So I'm going to do that. But that's just really important, I think, for our group here. Yes, well, you're very welcome. That you look forward to my show, and forgive me for giving my spirit. Yeah, well, you're very welcome. And it's, after Melissa passed, I've talked about this so many times. This work was like in the container of our relationship. And yes, we were writing books and we were doing some podcasts and putting it out there, but it really wasn't really landing, because it's kind of really goes over most people's heads. And most people are just not ready for this. They're just not really ready to work on themselves deeply. And so, and so it kind of just kind of flew under the radar. We did some good interviews. We did a good interview with Sean Stone, Oliver Stone's son, and we did quite a number of them. And we tried doing our own podcasts a few times and things like that, but it kind of never really blew up or anything. And so we just kept doing the work in our relationship, and we just focused on making music. I mean, I was always working on some book or some article, and then Melissa was always working on some new badass song or something to do with music, spiritual, alchemical lyrics. And then I would be the producer. I would produce it, and we would record it and make music videos, or we had a couple bands that we put together. So we were doing the music thing. And now that she's not with us, I'm like here, and I'm like, I have to keep this going. And there's a part of me that tends to get disillusioned, and is dissatisfied with the fact of so few people that will really work on themselves and take it seriously. And or that there's a lot of people who will work on themselves in some way that, of course, by way of meditation or some other somatic practice or breathing, or they'll use psychedelics. And so there are always people that will do that. But when it comes to doing the real shadow work, like what we were talking about earlier with Lauren, and what she's been doing. This is the hardcore stuff right there. This is the real deal. There's not that many people, and or they're not openly talking about it. And so there's a part of me that's like, oh man, well, we do a show for like what, 4 people? And it's like, yeah, that's the answer. The answer to that is yeah, do a show for 4 people. Yeah, do a show for 4 people. For those 4 people, they need this show. They need to see that there's other people out there that are serious. They need somebody that will take their call if something, gets bad. They need support, and they need some level of mentoring or guidance or peerage. And then I'm just going to do it. And so I just committed to doing it. And it's not easy to actually do these shows and try to come up with content and not just bore you and say the same things over and over again. And so I know that a portion of this show is a little bit of me boring you and saying some of the same things over and over again. But a lot of this, maybe half the show is not that. And so I have to work on, this is my own project. My own challenge is to make the show as good as possible, and that's why I really depend on your comments. But So there's a part of me that just says, what does it matter, because there's so few people that's into this, and I could I could go join the Jungians or whatever, but they're just not that. They're not that serious either. The current ones or whatever. So Megan says, yeah, it's just after midday here, very much on the path. Yes, you are. You very much are. Been grappling with shadow stuff lately. Well, maybe tell us something that you want to work with. Theo says that he sees my consistency and persistence and that it's appreciated. You're welcome. Yeah, I have to I just have to do that. That's kind of like starting and stopping. Like I've started and stopped things multiple times, being public and not just writing a book and putting it out there and being like, okay, whatever, here it is, but actually being public and being regular. I've started and stopped that multiple times. And this time, now that Melissa's not here, I'm just like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I have to stay with it. I have to stay with it. Every week I'm going to be here. I'm going to put up my sign, and then I'm just going to let people come. And if anybody knows anybody else that is on the path and they think that they would want this, then send them over here. And it will build. We will get more people. If it gets too huge, well, then I can't even really talk to you guys personally. So, but it's, we just can't control what it's going to do. I just have to do it. Just keep doing it. And then the more I talk to you guys and hear about your personal stuff, then the more we can dig in and really, and Melissa was like this, very transparent about her own stuff. And some of you guys are very transparent about your own stuff too. And Lauren is very transparent about her stuff. And so it's really good. If the more you guys are willing to put your stuff, Theo came on here once and he put his stuff out there. And so we'll keep talking to him, and the more stuff we can make public, the better. Put it into your persona. Put your shadow stuff. Let's talk about that. The traditional Jungian, understanding, the first understanding of the shadow was, what is it? Where does it come from? It's the equal opposite of the persona. So the persona is the part of your ego, your conscious mind, that has stored within it what you're expected to look like, to act like, to be like in the world. That's your persona, or what Freud called the superego. And that's the part of your ego that handles that. So there's always kind of a check going on, always checking, comparing yourself with the world, comparing your actions with other people's actions. And that needs to be there. You need to align with society to a degree to where we can have organized societies. It's not just chaos. So it's there, it's serving its function. So it orients us, but it also limits us. And the reason why Jung called this alchemical process of maturation, why he called it individuation, is because when you're very attentive to your persona, to your superego, to your social mask, when you're very attentive to that, then you become collectivized. You are a collective being, right? Oh, this is what a woman is supposed to talk like. This is what a woman is supposed to act like. These are the kinds of jobs that women work, or maybe women don't work jobs. They take care of children. Or this is what a man is supposed to look like, or do, or behave. And this is what a Christian is supposed to say and do, and how they're supposed to think and behave. Or whatever group, whatever tribe or subgroup that you feel allegiance to, it has its own subculture, and then that becomes a guidelines for your behavior and your thoughts, your values, your ethics, like we were talking about earlier. And so the more you're kind of sucked into the collective print, this is what I'm supposed to be. You you grow up, you get old enough to figure out kind of like, where am I in the world? And your 20s is a lot about trying to figure out where you fit in with society. Which group do I fit in with? And then you kind of figure out the closest thing to you, and then you find out what the group identity is, and then you say, okay, that's good, I'll put that on. That's the robe that I'm going to wear. That's the clothing, that's the mask that I'm going to wear. And so that's what all civilized people do. All people, all conscious people, primitive people too. So-called primitives, indigenous people. When you start reading Jung and stuff in these books, they start using those old terms like primitives. We call them indigenous people now, or then some people call them natives. I think we're calling them indigenous people, and they have a persona too. They have a super ego also. We all do. All conscious people do. Look to the Genesis story, the Adam and Eve story. It's like the story of eating the apple and all of that. It's a story of becoming consciousness and then becoming aware of your nakedness, becoming aware of how you're supposed to look and be. And so the shadow, in the original understanding of it, is everything that you can't put into your persona, because it would shock the conscience of society. It would shock your family. It would shock your church. It would shock your community, because you are not operating according to the community profile, which again is there for a reason. It's there for orientation purposes, for organization purposes, but it's also very limiting, and you just cannot find a perfectly good fit between who you are and who society would like you to be. There's just not a perfect fit. And so everything that doesn't fit is in the shadow, gets shoved down. And then so individuation, becoming an individual, is pulling yourself from the collective and saying, I don't need to be a collective being anymore. I need to be a true individual. But I still need to operate within society. So you still need a persona. You still need like a calling card, like an identity. Megan still has to say, hi Megan, what are you? What do you do? Oh, well, I'm a teacher, right? And she teaches English. Does she teach English grammar and literature or something like that along those lines? And so she can just be like, oh, okay. And then people can look at her and go, okay, right. Yes, you're a teacher. I understand. Right. I see where you fit into society. And then, oh, well, where do you work? Well, I work at this university or this school. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I kind of see that. Oh, yeah, right. My neighbor sends their children there. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I understand that. And then they have a picture of who you are and where you fit in. And then they can start to, and then if they have to talk to you, they can kind of be like, and they can kind of, it's useful to have an identity. It's like we talk about identity politics right now and how you need to have your identity and you need to figure out what your little pronoun identity is and stuff. Well, that's becoming a collective being. It's like the opposite. So funny. When you understand Jungian psychology, the identity politics is the opposite of individuation. It's the opposite of becoming a true, unique human being. So I'm going to answer your comment, Megan, but that's the origination of the shadow. It's the back pressure created by the persona, and so to become a true individual and to access your highest purpose, your gold, your daimon, your true vocation, and to become a truly unique individual, you have to split with the collective, at least to a degree. Some of what you are might actually fit with the collective. It's like I was a musician for years, and I found compatibility. I'm still a musician, but I was a professional musician for many years, and I found compatibility with other musicians, and there was a click there. And then I could tell people, oh yeah, I'm a musician. Oh, that's why you have long hair. Okay, I understand, right. So, but then as I started to develop psychospiritually and go into this whole world, and I try to bring this to the musicians, they're like, we don't care. What? You care about that? What is that? Who knows what that is? And then I had to fade out of that world a little bit because it didn't really fit anymore with the collective. So that's what the shadow is originally, but then we can also just kind of add more to it, which I'll do in a second. But so Megan, have been eating and living very cleanly lately. That's great. Lots of stuff coming up. Have struggled for a long time with juggling my artist side, yes, and my normal agreeable side has been a lifelong thing. Yes, there we go. Perfect thing to talk about. Yeah, so you have a daughter, and so when you're a bohemian, right, Megan? When you're a bohemian, and then you have a family, right? Even a small family, then that really puts a lot of responsibility on you, and then it's very the natural response to that is to become kind of a reliable, successful, so to speak, adult and get a real job and all that kind of stuff. And then when you go into that world, the matrix world, so to speak, even though you're on the side of the, what do we call that, like the humanities or whatever, when you go into that world, then the artist gets depressed. The artist gets shoved down because our materialistic society, our Protestant Puritan society represses the artist. It represses a lot of things. And one of those things, it represses the artist, and it represses the deep archetypal feminine. And it represses the intuitive, right? The mystic, the mystical, and the intuitive, and the feminine, and everything is about logos and order and commerce and materialistic progress, and then also, ladder climbing and career and your position and all this kind of stuff, this matrix stuff. And being an artist has nothing to do with that stuff. Being an artist is working with the unconscious, right? And if you can actually make money with your art and not compromise your art, you have found an amazing thing. That's like the holy grail for artists. A lot of artists that get successful enough to be financially comfortable, they have to, at some point, the art and the business side collide, and a lot of times the business side wins too much, takes too much of the pie, because the business side needs this kind of repetition. It needs more product. And the psyche doesn't produce art that way, right? You can't force yourself. So when you're on a roll, so this is what artists always happens, is they're on a roll, they're producing a lot because they're really, in Jungian psychology, it's the ego-self axis. The ego and this big-ass self are aligned, and you're in your flow. So you're in your flow, and so you're churning it out. Remember all the great bands, and also in the culture, there's waves of the culture. And the 60s, the 60s was in our lifetimes, even though there's people here who weren't alive in the 60s, or the 70s also, 60s and 70s, was this huge outpouring of, you could say, bohemianism, and I'm using that term because that relates to Megan and her work and her life. But so that's the 60s was just this total outpouring of this, and so we had this big injection of the artist archetype and its related the shaman archetype that's related to it. This was really kind of they're kind of both merged, I guess, a long time ago, but so that really poured out and poured into the culture in the 60s and 70s. So you had all that colorful clothing and everything was artified, and just art everywhere, and jazz music and all the stuff. It was just all the art. It just poured out. And yes, there was these epicenters of it, like California or Paris, London, New York. There were these epicenters, but it went everywhere. And so that was a period when it was more possible for artists to actually do something significant, and the economy wasn't so blown out like it is now with all the inflation and everything. The economies, the currencies are so inflated that you can't work, like you can't survive on inside the traditional society on just a part-time living, because an artist needs that. They need to work part-time basically, or have a benefactor or some kind of a situation so that they have time to create their art, or they need to sell it. So there needs to be some kind of a thing there, and that's like, it's like hitting the Holy Grail, is to get that kind of, that confluence, that of inputs there, and have that work out. So I know the problem. I know the problem very well. And, I'm living in a family property, like for 20 years, I had my own live work warehouse loft in California. That was all my, I had my apartment in there. I had my band practice in there. I had my recording studio, my mastering studio. I had all that stuff in there. And I sublet some of the space so that I could get my rent down to, it's like $800 a month with all utilities and rent and everything. So it was affordable. And so then I could work as an audio engineer, and essentially not even full time really. And I could still live fine and be healthy. And I don't have children. That's another thing. I recognize that that's a big thing. And that's why probably a lot of people who get into this work actually do it after their children have left home. It's a really good time to do it. It's when your children have left home. And then you can just start pulling this stuff up, and you can start doing this work. But, so I understand the problem. Definitely I understand the problem of the artist. And then a lot of people, they live, they get integrated into the culture, and then they don't get, their artist gets so kind of pushed down that they never really pull it back out. My parents were like that. My parents were artists. They were actors. But then as the family and the matrix and all that kind of stuff kind of pushed down on them, then they kind of just put it in the closet and didn't really pull it back out. So I understand the problem with that, Megan. And then what else did you have on there? Your normal agreeable side. This is a big one for women, because women are programmed to be agreeable, to smile and be agreeable and open-minded. And the Jungians talk about this, or at least Carl Jung did, about the sort of natural kind of knee-jerk reaction that men have when a woman turns on her animus, her masculinity, and then she starts being assertive. And she starts being assertive, and she starts using aggression in her personality, which naturally comes on in most women in the second half of life. And then that's not ladylike, and men don't like that. And so that's difficult to kind of get in touch with your Amazon, your warrior energy, and start using it and then how that you naturally experience pushback in your ego and your persona against that. And then the people who are used to you as being an agreeable person, they're not going to like it when you're disagreeable all of a sudden. And so then you can lose friends and relationships. And so there's this pressure to stay agreeable. So, you know, just being conscious of this, like what I just explained, that's kind of like what's going on internally. And it's like, if you can be conscious of this and recognize that this is an archetypal issue, it's an archetypal shadow issue, and that you're not the only one going through that, but and then communicate it to the people around you, right? That's one of the best ways to create kind of lubricant for the shadow to come up, is communication. And it's like, once you can, and this is one of the ways in which I can help you all, is that I can take your stuff and I can give you like I just did right there, kind of like an overarching kind of meta theory to understand it. And then you can use that as a lubricant with other people. So when other people notice this aspect about you, you can say, well, listen, I've noticed that aspect about me too. And I've been working with that. And I understand how I used to come off like this, and now I'm being more assertive and like this, and how that doesn't feel nice to you and stuff. And you put it into consciousness and you bring it up with them. And then they go, oh, okay. Oh, so you're working on that. Oh, okay. Now they may not have any experience working with something like that. Oh, that sounds like psychology. Yes, indeed, that's what it is. And so you take your issue and figure out a way to communicate it to other people and just say, yeah, I'm working on that. I'm working on that. People don't like this, that, or that about you. Maybe they don't even see. I was talking to Lauren about this. I have figured out, it's taken me a while to do this, and I've had to kind of develop enough of a kind of a capacity to speak in this way. But I have basically taken up the strategy of the way I deal with other people. This is a good subject, actually. The way I deal with other people is that acquaintances, people that are just, come and go, people that you're not going to see very much or whatever, I don't go into anything really deep with them, and it's all fine. But anybody that has to interface with me at any level of depth, there has to be any level of intimacy, they're going to find out pretty darn quickly, like almost right away. Oh yeah, you're into shadow work and you write books on the shadow and Jungian psychology and all that kind of stuff. And then when stuff comes up between us, when anything comes up, I just give them an analysis and I say, well, I understand what's going on right now. And I give them a psychological analysis of what it is that's going on between us, or what is going on in the group. And I throw a psychological analysis on top of it. And then all of a sudden, everybody unconsciously realizes, oh, this guy can see. He can see other layers. And he wants to work with this stuff. And he's approaching it from a more mature angle. And then what that does is that kind of makes you mysterious in a way. And some people will then steer away from you. Some people will then steer away from you, and that's fine. That's what should happen. They steer away from you. And then other people will get more intimate with you. And then that's what you really want. And then those people can, then you can do alchemy at some level with them. Now you have an actual friend that you can, somebody deep. So I just kind of like show everybody right on top, right up front. Oh yeah. Everything that comes through me gets a psychological analysis, however you want to put it. And I'm aware. and I'm on it. And if stuff happens with me, and if I get triggered, and if I'm not aware and stuff, you have full permission to make me aware. And then I will work on that stuff. And then when that opportunity shows up and you do have to work on your side of things, then you do it. And when you have a conflict with somebody else, this is the ethics of conflict. We're all talking about the ethics of what we're doing ethically and everything. Resolving our conflicts. I got keeping my list of, it's like, this is really difficult actually to kind of really put together a whole system here. But because there's so much in there. So this is lower left-hand quadrant here, and this is the ethics of conflict resolution, of relational conflict resolution through this shadow-aware lens. And so that's what we're doing. And so when we get into a conflict, we recognize that our complexes and their complexes are interacting, and that it's not one side or the other, that it's both. And then the more mature person, which is usually us in these situations, takes the opportunity to process their own side of it and take responsibility for their own side of it, and to analyze the situation, and then to put that analysis into the field and say, here's why I reacted the way I did. It triggered me because of this pattern that's in me. I'm still working with it. I recognize that was being triggered by the way you were interfacing with me, and now I'm thankful that happened so that we can work on this. And then you process the energy. You do the emotional processing technique, and you process the energy in your psyche, in your body, and you let this stuff come up in your own time, and you work through it. You use active imagination, or however we're going to work through it, and you work through the activation of that complex, and then you analyze it, and then you tell the other person, this is my analysis of what happened, and this is why I was triggered, and my side of the whole story. And you can bring in their side of it too, but you have to be careful with their side, because they may not be so open to self-analysis at that time, but you have to bring some of that in there. But mainly you're showing them, you're serving as an example for how, when your shadow junk gets activated, triggered, you have the capacity to work through it. Even if you get triggered later, you can come back and say, I see what happened. And then you put that analysis on the table, and now everybody can see, wow, she's serious. He or she is serious about this, and this is a more mature way of being. So then what happens is the less mature people kind of move away, the more mature people come closer, and you get a smaller circle of people, but they're more mature. Yeah, so that's how we do that, and I know you guys understand me. So that all came from Megan saying that about her agreeable side, and how that can lead to, because what you're by being frustrated about this whole aspect of your agreeable or unagreeable, non-agreeable, you have to tell me, side is that your persona and your superego, whatever term we want to use, is holding that back, doesn't want to spill that stuff out because of the way you'll be seen or treated, because it'll lead to conflict. But when you're willing to use conflict to mature relationships, and to analyze, and to basically as a kind of a test to see who can handle you, who can handle the most mature version of Megan? Who can handle the most mature version of Megan? Those are the people she wants to have in her life. Who can handle having a fight with her and coming back and analyzing the situation and making up and cleaning the whole thing up so that there's no residual garbage in the field left over. Total cleanup. Complete and total cleanup, not shoving anything back under the rug. Who can handle that? Those are the people she wants in her life. And then she has to be able to handle that too. She has to come up to that standard. Of course, she has to be the standard maker. Megan has to set the standard for the alchemical relationship and for really mature psycho-spiritual conflict resolution. So, where are we, everybody? We are at 9. It's what time is it? My thing. My eyes are so bad. You guys don't even know. 9:40. So right. So we're 2 hours and 10 minutes in. So I kind of like, I've been reposting these. These are in the live tab. If you ever want to see all the old episodes, go to the Shadow Tech Alchemy YouTube channel and then click on the live tab, and the old episodes are there. But YouTube kind of hides them back there. So I've been taking some of them and just I kind of put them in a video editor, and then I'm spitting them back out and uploading them to the main part, to the videos tab. Or I take chunks, I take a section out and then post that, and then I'll put the link to the live, to the replay of the live show. But 2 hours is kind of good. 2 hours is kind of good. And so some of these I go over 2 hours, and that's fine. But I think keeping it around 2 hours has been working out good. And then I just, it's nighttime over here, and it's like I haven't eaten dinner. I usually eat something before I do the show, so I'm fine. But I'm going to go eat something and all of that. But if there's anything that anybody wants to say, comment or question or anything that you want to say in the chat, do it. And I'll hang out for a couple more minutes and see if anybody wants to say anything, so that I don't cut anybody off. And then we'll end for tonight. And you're always welcome to send me a message, shadowtechalchemy@gmail.com, or just go to the website and use the contact form, or find me on Facebook, Colin E. Davis on Facebook. I don't use Instagram. It's like a child's toy. And I have a couple accounts up there, but I'm not using them. And I don't really think this subject matter really interfaces with it. And I haven't messed with TikTok or any of these other ones. So, Facebook's where I'm at with social media. I have an X account too. There's a Shadow Tech Alchemy X account, but that's also just a freaking clown show, just a political. It's almost all politics, and it's just a ridiculous clown show, circus over there. But anyway, there is a Shadow Tech Alchemy X page. Okay, so I think. I'll wait another minute just to see if anybody wants to say anything. And is there anything else I need to update you on before we tune out? Let me see if there was anything that came up on my okay. So I don't think that's it. I do think that's it. I think we're good for tonight. So thank you all for hanging out. And appreciate you all very much as always. And we will be back here next Tuesday. And if you know anybody that would like this, can benefit from this kind of a show, well, then send them on over here, and we'd be happy to have them. So thank you guys for support, and I will see you next week. Have a great week, everybody.